There is a kind of night in football that begins with a strange feeling in the air, something the supporter cannot quite explain, but can feel. St. James Park was full, the atmosphere was one of a decisive occasion, and everything seemed to be unfolding normally. Even so, small details started to catch the attention of those watching more closely. A gesture here, a glance there, a pause that lasted a little longer than usual. Nothing explicit, nothing confirmed, just that uncomfortable impression that something important might be taking shape away from the obvious headlines. When matches of this level take place, every second is examined under a magnifying glass. The supporter follows not only the ball, but also the player's behavior, the reactions on the bench, the body language on the pitch. In big games, any sign that feels out of the ordinary becomes a talking point, and that was exactly what started to happen even before halftime, when the tempo of the game remained intense, but attention was divided by something that was not on the scoreboard. It is at this point that many fans begin to feel that silent anxiety. Newcastle were producing a solid dominant performance, showing European-level maturity. The results seemed to be on track, but football teaches us that the biggest concern does not always come from the opponent. Sometimes, it comes from within, from something that threatens the team's balance at the least expected moment. Anyone who follows the club knows how these situations tend to unfold, and while the ball kept rolling, the feeling in the stands and on the screens was that something needed to be explained. It was not panic, but it was not calm either. It was curiosity mixed with apprehension. Moments like this make supporters hold their breath, waiting for answers that usually only come after the final whistle. That is why following Newcastle closely, including here on the channel, makes such a difference in not missing any detail. From that point on, the situation became clearer. The central theme of the night became the physical condition of Bruno Guimarães, captain and key figure for Newcastle, who had to be substituted during the Champions League match against PSV. The midfielder left the pitch limping in the first half, immediately raising concern among supporters and opening the door to speculation about the seriousness of the issue. Bruno Guimarães had once again been the heartbeat of the Magpies' midfield. His presence on the pitch brings control, leadership, and intensity. That is why, when he went down in pain and signaled to the bench, the mood changed instantly. Initially, the Brazilian tried to continue, showing resilience and commitment, but the discomfort was clear to see. Shortly afterwards, it became obvious that he would not be able to reach halftime without assistance. The substitution took place in stoppage time of the first half, with Lewis Miley coming on in his place. Despite the concern, Newcastle stayed focused and secured a convincing 3-0 victory. Goals from Yoane Wissa, Anthony Gordon and Harvey Barnes confirmed the team's dominance. Even so, despite the positive result, the main question after the match was not about the scoreline but about the captain's physical condition. After the match, Eddie Howe was asked directly about Bruno Guimarães in his press conference. The head coach chose a cautious tone, without alarmism, but also without hiding his concern. According to Howe, Bruno was experiencing pain and some swelling in his ankle. He said he hoped it was nothing serious, but admitted it was still too early for any definitive diagnosis, which naturally heightened the supporters' attention. Howe also highlighted that the fact Bruno had to leave the pitch was worrying. In competitions at this level, losing a player with such influence can completely alter short-term plans. The manager stressed that more detailed medical assessments would be carried out in the coming days, making it clear that the situation remains open. That is exactly why it is worth subscribing to the channel and following the updates in real time. The timing of the injury also drew attention. Bruno went down 5 minutes before halftime and, even in pain, insisted on staying on the pitch for a few more minutes. This kind of attitude underlines just how committed the Brazilian is to the club. However, it also raises questions about the risk of aggravating the injury, something the coaching staff clearly tried to avoid by making the substitution before the interval. This season, Bruno Guimarães has already played 33 matches in all competitions for Newcastle. In a demanding schedule, his consistency has been impressive. He has scored 8 goals and provided 6 assists, figures that reflect not only his technical quality, but also his tactical importance. He is the player Eddie Howe trusts most in difficult moments, especially in a campaign marked by ups and downs. For that reason, any possibility of his absence has an immediate impact. Newcastle are in a decisive moment in the Champions League and still dream of finishing among the top 8 in the group stage. The victory over PSV kept that hope alive, but the next challenge is even greater. The team face Paris Saint-Germain away from home, the reigning European champions, in a match that demands full strength and total concentration. Whether or not Bruno Guimarães is available for that clash could completely change the scenario. Beyond his technical quality, he offers emotional leadership, something essential in high-pressure games. Without him, Howe may be forced to adjust the midfield, placing greater responsibility on young players like Lewis Miley, who performed well after coming on, but is still in the process of maturing. It is in this context that every statement from Eddie Howe carries extra weight. The manager understands the expectations surrounding the captain and tries to balance transparency with caution. According to information published by BBC Sport and confirmed in the post-match press conference, The club will adopt a conservative approach until tests clearly indicate the severity of the injury. For the supporter, all that remains is to wait and follow every update closely. Situations like this show how a perfect night can carry a silent concern, and it is precisely to bring this kind of information, with context and responsibility, that the channel exists. If you are not yet subscribed, this is the ideal moment to join the community that follows Newcastle in every detail. Meanwhile, the squad remains focused. The 3-0 victory demonstrated maturity and collective strength, something Eddie Howe has been building since the start of the project. Even with Bruno's exit, the team maintained its standard and controlled the game, which is a positive sign for the challenges ahead. Still, no one inside the club ignores the weight of a potential absence of the captain behind the scenes. The medical assessment will be decisive in determining the next steps. Ankle injuries can vary greatly in severity, from something minor to more complex issues. That is why the caution shown by the manager makes sense. The objective is to protect the player and ensure he only returns when fully recovered, avoiding unnecessary risks. For Newcastle, the season still holds many important chapters. The Champions League, domestic commitments, and the constant pressure for results require a full and healthy squad. Bruno Guimarães symbolizes this ambitious project, and his physical condition has become one of the main talking points of the week. Unsurprisingly, the subject dominates debates among supporters and the media. It is worth remembering that Eddie Howe rarely dramatizes situations like this. When he admits concern, it is because there is genuinely something that needs to be monitored closely. At the same time, he reinforces that there is still hope. It is nothing serious. Maintaining balance in his communication with the fans and avoiding premature conclusions. This kind of scenario shows how football goes far beyond the 90 minutes. One detail, one isolated moment, can influence weeks of planning. That is why following the news in depth makes all the difference. Here on the channel you find not only what happened, but what it could mean for Newcastle's future.